1. Introduction. My name is Ella. I am 22 years old. My family needed money. Life was hard for us at that time, and we needed help. I needed to find a job very quickly. I looked in the newspaper and on boards in the town. One day, I saw a small advertisement. It said Maid wanted for large private house. It gave an address in the rich part of the town. I knew this house was very famous and very big, like a palace from a storybook. It was a little scary, but I went to the address to ask about the job. The house was even bigger than I imagined. It was very grand and looked cold from the outside. I went inside, and a woman spoke to me. She was the head housekeeper. Her name was Mrs. Gable. She was older, with kind eyes, but she spoke seriously. She asked me questions about my work experience. I told her I was a hard worker and learned quickly. Then she told me about the master of the house. His name was Mr. Frank. Mrs. Gable said, "Mr. Frank is the owner of this house. He is also the head of a very big company. He is a very busy man, and he likes things a certain way. He is very particular." She looked at me carefully. "Many maids do not stay long here," she said. "The work is hard, and Mr. Frank is difficult sometimes. He likes quiet and order." I listened to her words. I knew the job might be difficult, but I really needed the money for my family. "I understand, Mrs. Gable," I said. "I promise I will do my very best. I will work hard and I will follow all the rules." I wanted this job more than anything. After the interview, Mrs. Gable told me I had the job. I felt happy because I could help my family, but I also felt a little scared. What was Mr. Frank like? Why did the other maids leave? I did not know what the future held, but I was starting a new life inside that big, cold house. I hoped I could do a good job and stay there. 2. My hard job. My first day in the very large house was busy. The house felt like a palace. It was so big and full of expensive things everywhere. I started cleaning a large living room. Suddenly, Mr. Frank came in. He was a tall man and wore a dark suit. He looked very handsome, like a man you see in movies. But his face was very cold, and he did not smile at all. His eyes looked like pieces of ice. He looked at me for just 1 second. He did not say hello to me. He spoke only to Mrs. Gable, the head housekeeper. "Is this the new girl?" he asked her. His voice was deep and sounded very serious. It made me feel a little shiver. Mrs. Gable said, "Yes, Mr. Frank, this is Ella." He just gave a short nod and then walked away without another word. I thought to myself, "Oh, he is a very cold man." For the next few days, Mr. Frank did not speak to me at all. He acted like I was not even in the room when he was there. I quickly learned the many rules for working in his house. The rules were very strict and important. Rule number 1 was, I must be invisible. This meant I had to clean the rooms only when Mr. Frank was not in them. Rule number 2 was, I must never touch his personal papers. These papers were on his desk in his private study. Rule number 3 was specific about his coffee. It had to be black, very hot, and waiting on his desk exactly at 7 o'clock in the morning. There must be no sugar and no milk. The other maids in the house talked quietly when Mr. Frank was not near. They whispered about him. "He is always like that," they said. "He is very difficult." They warned me, "Be careful, don't make him angry." They told me that many maids did not stay long because the rules were hard and Mr. Frank was so cold. One maid said that the maid before me cried when he spoke to her loudly. I felt a little scared, but I needed the job. I tried my very best every day to be quiet, work hard, and follow every rule perfectly. 3. A little kindness. Working in the big house was hard. Mr. Frank was always cold. He never spoke to me, and his face was always serious. But even though he was like ice, I started to see something else. He was very lonely. He lived in this very large house, but he seemed so alone. I felt a little bit sorry for him. He worked all the time. Mrs. Gable, the head housekeeper, sometimes talked about him. She said he worked too much and did not have any happiness in his life. She said he had no joy. This made me feel even more that he needed something good. I wanted to do something small, something kind, just to maybe bring a little bit of cheer into his cold world. I did these things secretly. I did not want him to see or anyone else. I just wanted to do a good thing because I felt it was right. One day, I was near his study window. I saw a small bird hit the glass. It fell down onto the ground. It looked hurt. I waited until I was sure no one was watching. Then I went outside very quietly. I gently picked up the small bird. It was very still. I found a quiet corner in the garden under some bushes where dogs and cats could not go. I made a little soft place for the bird there. I hoped it would be safe and get better. I did not think Mr. Frank saw me. Another thing I started to do was with flowers. There were many beautiful flowers in the garden. Sometimes, when I cleaned Mr. Frank's study, I would pick one single, small flower. It was usually a simple one, maybe blue or yellow. I would find a very tiny vase that was in the room, maybe on a bookshelf. I would put the one small flower in the tiny vase and place it on the corner of his large desk. It was just a little bit of color in the big, serious room. I did not know if he ever noticed the flower. He had so many papers and important things on his desk. But I hoped maybe, just maybe, it would make the room feel a little less cold, a little less lonely for him, even if he did not know why. 4. Mr. Frank is unwell. One night, a terrible storm hit the town. The rain was very strong, making loud noise on the roof and windows. The wind blew hard. Suddenly, the lights went out everywhere. The whole house became dark. It was scary being in such a large, dark place. I could not see anything without a small candle. The storm continued for a long time. I could hear the wind outside. The next morning, the storm was gone. The sun was trying to come out, but the house was still quiet. It was the usual time for Mr. Frank to come downstairs. He always came down at the same time to drink his black coffee. But today he did not appear. 7 o'clock passed, then 7:30. We waited, but he did not come down. Mrs. Gable seemed very worried. She kept looking at the stairs. She looked troubled. She found me in the kitchen. "Ella," she said, her voice quiet, "Mr. Frank is not downstairs. This is not usual. Can you please go up to his room and check on him? I am old now, and going up the stairs quickly is hard for me." I felt a little afraid inside. Go to Mr. Frank's private room? I had never been allowed near that part of the house, but I saw the worry on Mrs. Gable's face. "Yes, Mrs. Gable," I said. "I will go and check." I walked slowly out of the kitchen and to the main stairs. The house felt very empty and silent. I walked up the wide stairs carefully. I reached the top floor and walked along the hall to Mr. Frank's room. I stood outside his door. My hands felt cold and my heart was beating fast. I knocked softly. "Mr. Frank," I waited. There was no answer, only silence. I knocked again, a little louder. "Mr. Frank, are you all right?" Still, no sound came from inside the room. Now I was very worried. What if something was wrong? Mrs. Gable was waiting downstairs. I gently put my hand on the door handle. It was cold metal. I slowly pushed the door open just a little bit. I looked into the room. "Mr. Frank," I said quietly again. I saw him then. He was lying in his large bed. He looked very different, not strong and cold like usual. He looked very, very sick. His face was bright red. His eyes were closed and his mouth was open a little. He was breathing fast and it sounded like he was having trouble. I walked quietly to the side of his bed. I put my hand gently on his forehead. It was burning hot, much hotter than normal skin. He had a very high fever. Mr. Frank was unwell. He was truly sick. I needed to go back downstairs and tell Mrs. Gable immediately. 5, he sees me. I ran to find Mrs. Gable. "Mr. Frank is very sick," I told her. "He has a high fever." She looked very worried. She quickly called the doctor to the house. The doctor came fast and checked Mr. Frank. He said Mr. Frank had a bad flu and needed medicine and good care. Mrs. Gable said to me, "Ella, I am not young now. It is hard for me to go up and down the stairs many times a day. Can you please help care for Mr. Frank? He needs someone with him." I quickly said yes. I wanted to help him get better. For 3 days, I helped care for Mr. Frank. It was hard work sometimes. I brought him cool water many times each day because he was hot with fever. I put a soft, cold cloth on his forehead to try and cool him down. I made him simple soup, the kind my mother always made when someone in our family was sick. He ate only a little, but I made sure he had something. Most of the time, He was unconscious or sleeping because he was so sick. But sometimes he would open his eyes. When he looked at me then, his eyes were different from before. They were not cold like ice. They looked tired and maybe a little soft. One time his voice was very quiet, almost a whisper, and he said, "Thank you." My heart felt a strange little jump inside my chest. Slowly, day by day, Mr. Frank started to get better. He was stronger. He sat up in his bed for longer times. He started to eat more of the soup and drink the tea I brought him. One afternoon, I came into his room with his tea. He was sitting up, looking out the window. He turned his head and looked at me. He really looked at me this time. It was not the look he gave the furniture. It was like he saw me, Ella, the person. He said, "Ella." He used my name. "Thank you for helping me when I was sick." I felt my cheeks get warm. "You are very welcome, Mr. Frank," I said softly. He looked at me for a long moment. It felt like a long time. Then he asked, "Why did you stay and help me, Ella?" The other staff were afraid to come near my room. They thought I would be angry when I was better. I thought about his question. "When people are sick, they need help," I said simply. "It is right to care for someone who is not well." He was quiet for a little while. Then he said, "Not everyone thinks like you, Ella." After he was well again and came downstairs, things slowly started to change. Mr. Frank began to speak to me more often. He would say, "Good morning, Ella," when he saw me. Sometimes I saw a very small smile on his face, just for a second, and I thought it was for me. The other staff in the house noticed these changes. They saw that Mr. Frank, the cold master, was talking to the new maid. They saw the way he looked at me sometimes. They started to whisper to each other in the hallways and in the kitchen. Mr. Frank talks to Ella now. He looks at her differently. "Do you think something is happening?" I heard their whispers and my face felt hot. I was just the maid. He was the rich man who owned the house. It felt impossible. But when he looked at me, my heart did a little dance. 6. Another woman. One day, a new person came to the house. She was a woman. She was very beautiful and elegant. She wore expensive clothes. Her name was Ms. Victoria Stone. Mrs. Gable told me about her. She said Ms. Victoria came from a very rich family. Mr. Frank's parents knew her family. Mrs. Gable said Mr. Frank's parents wanted him to marry Ms. Victoria. She was suitable for him, Mrs. Gable explained. This meant she was from the same rich world as Mr. Frank. MS. Victoria stayed at the house for a few days. I saw how she acted. When Mr. Frank was in the room, she was very sweet to him. She smiled a lot and spoke softly to him. She would touch his arm when she talked. But when Mr. Frank was not there, her face changed. She looked at me with cold eyes. She was very rude. She would say things like, "Maid, bring this now," or "Hurry up, Maid." She treated me like I was not important, like I was dirt on her shoes. It made me feel small and invisible again, like I felt before Mr. Frank got sick. I saw Ms. Victoria and Mr. Frank together. He was polite to her, but he did not seem very happy. His face looked stiff. He did not smile when he was with her. But still, she was beautiful and from his world. She was the woman his family wanted for him. I was just a maid who cleaned his house. I felt a sharp pain inside my heart when I saw them together. It was a feeling I did not like. It was jealousy. It was a foolish feeling, I knew. I was just Ella, the maid. She was Ms. Victoria Stone. She was from his world, and I was not. She was the suitable woman, and I was nobody important. 7. The party problem, Mr. Frank decided to have a big business party at his house. Many important and rich people were invited. The house was filled with music and talking. Guests wore expensive clothes. I was working with the other staff for the party. My job was to carry trays of drinks to the guests. I felt very nervous because I was not used to being around so many important people. I tried to be invisible, like Rule 1 said, but it was hard with so many people moving around. MS. Victoria Stone was at the party. She looked beautiful in a long white dress. She stayed very close to Mr. Frank all evening. She laughed and touched his arm. But when Mr. Frank was talking to someone else, she looked at me and the other staff with a cold, unpleasant look. I was carrying a tray with several glasses of red wine. I walked slowly and carefully through the room, trying not to bump into anyone. Suddenly, a guest moved quickly without looking and walked right into me. The bump was strong, and I lost my balance completely. The heavy tray fell from my hands. The glasses broke, and the red wine went everywhere. A lot of it landed on Ms. Victoria's beautiful white dress. She screamed very loudly. The music seemed to stop. All the talking stopped. Every single person in the room turned to look at me. My face felt like fire. I wished I could just disappear. MS. Victoria looked down at her ruined dress. Her face became very red with anger. "You stupid, clumsy girl," she shouted across the quiet room. "Look what you have done. My dress is completely ruined. This is terrible." Then she turned to Mr. Frank, who was standing next to her. "Frank," she said, her voice very sharp and demanding, "you must fire this incompetent maid immediately. She is a disaster. She cannot do anything right." I looked at Mr. Frank. My stomach felt cold. I was sure he would be angry with me. I thought, this is it, my job is finished. He will send me away. My eyes started to fill with tears, but Mr. Frank did not look angry at me. He looked at Ms. Victoria. His voice was quiet, but it was very strong. "Victoria," he said clearly, "it was an accident. Ella is not stupid or clumsy. Anyone could have been bumped like that." MS. Victoria looked completely shocked. "Frank, are you really defending her? This servant?" "Mr. Frank took a small step away from Ms. Victoria and a small step closer to me. "Yes, Victoria, I am defending her. You will not speak to Ella that way in my house. It was an accident, nothing more." The room was completely silent again. The rich guests stared, their mouths a little open. They looked from Mr. Frank to Ms. Victoria, then to me. It was a big shock for them. The important Mr. Frank defending a maid against a woman from his own world. MS. Victoria's face twisted with anger and hate. She looked at me, then back at Frank. "If you care more about this nobody than me," she said, her voice shaking, "then I will leave." She quickly turned and walked out of the room, her ruined white dress trailing behind her. After she left, the guests slowly started talking again, but it was all whispering. Mr. Frank turned to me. His face was serious, but his eyes looked soft and kind. "Are you all right, Ella?" he asked gently. I was still shaking from the shock. I could not find my voice. I just nodded my head. My heart was pounding very fast. I felt so many different things inside me. Shock, fear, but also a strange warmth because he had stood up for me. I quickly put my head down and left the room. I needed time to think about what had just happened. 8. Our future together. Later that night, after everyone left the party, I was in my small room. I felt sad because I thought I must leave the house. Then there was a soft knock on my door. It was Frank. He asked if he could come in. I opened the door for him. He looked a little tired. He came inside the room. He said, "Ella, don't leave." He took my hand gently. His hand felt warm. He looked into my eyes for a long moment. He said his heart had been cold for many years. He had built strong walls around it because of past hurts. But he said my quiet kindness, the small flower I put on his desk, my care when he was sick, these things slowly broke his walls. He said I showed him how to feel warmth and happiness again. Then his voice was soft. He said, "Ella, I think I am falling in love with you." Happy tears came to my eyes immediately. I was so surprised and so happy at the same time. I whispered, "Oh, Mr. Frank." He smiled a little, a real smile. "Please," he said softly, "call me Frank." The next time was not easy for us. People talked a lot about us. There was much gossip in the house and outside. Newspapers wrote stories about the rich CEO and the maid. Some of Frank's family and his business friends were not happy about us. They said I was not from his world. They thought I was not good enough for him. It was a difficult time to face everyone. But Frank was very strong. He did not listen to the bad words or the gossip. He stood right beside me. When we went out in public, he held my hand tightly. He introduced me to people he knew. He said, "This is Ella. She is the woman I love." He told his family that my background did not matter to him. He said my heart was what was important, and he knew I had the kindest heart. It was hard sometimes, but Frank was always there for me. He protected me and loved me strongly. My love for him grew more and more every day because of his courage and his deep love for me. One sunny afternoon, Frank took me to the garden. We walked to the quiet place where I helped the little bird many months ago. He stopped there. He looked at me with so much love in his eyes. Then he went down on one knee on the soft green grass. He held a small, simple box in his hand. "Ella," he said, his voice shaking just a little with emotion. "You came into my life when it was cold and empty. You filled it with light and warmth. You taught me how to feel again and how to love again truly. You are everything to me now." He opened the small box. Inside was a beautiful, simple ring. "Ella, my dearest Ella," he asked, "will you marry me?" Tears ran down my face again, but they were the happiest tears. "Yes, Frank, yes, I will marry you," I said loudly. He stood up and carefully put the ring on my finger. Then he kissed me. It was the sweetest kiss in the world. We planned our wedding together. It was not a big, fancy party for all of society to see. It was a beautiful, quiet, and intimate wedding. Only the people who really loved us and cared for us were there. Mrs. Gable came, and she cried happy tears during the ceremony. My family was also so happy for me. They liked Frank very much, and he was very good and kind to them. So, my life changed completely. I, Ella, the simple maid, became Mrs. Ella. I became Frank's wife. He is not the cold CEO anymore. Well, maybe he is still cold and serious to other people in business meetings. But to me, he is just Frank. He is my loving husband. He smiles often now, and his eyes are always warm and full of love when he looks at me. Our big house is not cold anymore. It is filled with laughter, full of love, and I still pick small flowers from the garden sometimes for the rooms. We are very, very happy together in our new life. My cold CEO fell in love with his maid, and his maid fell in love with him right back.